guys, I'm here with a Fender Dkisto guitar, and today we're going to be looking at the brief history of Fender Archtop guitars. And it starts all the way back in actually the 1960s, because in 1962 a former Rickenbacker guitar designer by the name of Roger Rossmay approached Leo Fender with the idea of building an Archtop. This was actually fulfilled because obviously Leo Fender sold the company. It was then owned by CBS, but they actually released this guitar in 1968, and it was run from 1968 to 1972. There was two models. The first was called a Limited, and the second, which the Limited, they sold actually only 40 of those models, and then they sold 100 guitars which were under the name of Montego. And those guitars actually had, shock horror, a bolt-on neck, so that I'm sure would give a lot of jazz guitar aficionados nightmares, and they would be able to sleep with the thought of having, a detachable neck with 4 bolts. But I guess Fender, all their guitars were bolt-on necks pretty much, as far as I know, with the electric guitars. So that would kind of go in line really with their sort of style of guitar making, And the idea was, I guess, maybe you could replace the neck if you didn't like it. It was easy to replace. So that was one way of going about it. So after that sort of first attempt at making the Archtop, then Fender decided in 1984 to employ the services of possibly, or actually factually, the greatest at that time jazz guitar designer, maker, luthier in the world, and that was Jimmy Dkisto. And Jimmy Dkisto was an apprentice of D'Angelico, who quite possibly made the best jazz guitars ever, And I've actually unfortunately played one myself. I was not worthy of the experience, but I played one recently actually, and I can tell you now that they are extremely resonant, extremely beautifully made. And the model I played was, I think it was called a Star 1 or Star A, and it was a journeyman sort of jazz guitar, and it was just absolutely beautiful, very, very resonant, very great guitar. So this around 1984, when sort of Dan Smith was running Fender, or at least part of Fender, he came up with the idea of this guitar line called the Master Series guitars. And you may have heard of that because Robin Ford actually played the Fender Ultra, which was part of that series. So Fender released 3 guitars. I think it was an Ultra, an Elite, and a Flame or something, and they were solid guitars with chambers and a spruce top, and they were obviously electric solid guitars. But they also employed, obviously I said, Jimmy Dkisto to design 3 models which were called the Ultra, the Elite, and the Standard, and these were made, designed by Jimmy Dkisto. I just want to mention that Jimmy Dkisto in 1975 actually had worked with the Swedish guitar manufacturer called Hagstrom, and he'd actually designed some really interesting sort of models, 2-pickup models for them. And Jimmy Dkisto, I think Hagstrom actually made some bodies or some laminate plates for Jimmy Dkisto for his own Dkisto guitars, and you'll find that actually some Dkisto guitars actually have Hagstrom made tops and possibly sides, I don't know, but obviously Jimmy Dkisto put them together. But anyway, I digress. Back to Fender, and Fender decided to use a Japanese factory to manufacture these guitars, and these 3 models. I'm going to tell you the price of these models in 1984. They were, I'm assuming this is dollars from the 1984 Fender price list I've got here. It says Dkisto Ultra with the case was $2,500. The Dkisto Elite, which I also own, which has got a spruce top. It's a beautiful guitar, 1 pickup, a Schecter pickup. That was going for $1,099, and then the Dkisto Standard with a case was going for $900, and that had 2 Schecter pickups and was a laminate maple guitar. And particularly, I think of those 3 guitars, Obviously, the Ultra was a really beautiful, all solid, full size jazz archtop acoustic guitar, which was very beautiful. Although some of the prototypes, which you may see around the internet, were actually made in America and possibly by Jimmy Dkisto. But Japan had a custom shop that Fender set up to make those Ultra guitars. So they were actually made. There were some made actually in Japan. Now the Elite was a real sort of journeyman's guitar, and it's got a lot of sort of praise over the years for being just a really solid guitar, and you know, great jazz guitarists, younger jazz guitarists recently, such as Lager Lund, was using it. Jimmy Bruno, I think, used one. You know, lots of famous jazz guys used it. I think even Jim Hall, although he never used one, he actually owned a couple. And you probably can tell me in the comments lots of other great jazz guitarists that used the Fender Dkisto Elite model. So that was a really great model. So that actually went on, that line of guitars went on until 1990, and then they ceased production. And I just want to put out that that the Dkisto Elite model, which started with a Schecter pickup, was modified a bit later by Fender to install a standard humbucking pickup. Okay, so you can see Lager Lund with a standard pickup, and that's not because he replaced the Schecter. No, that was because the Schecter was actually, they modified that design and took out the Schecter pickup for a normal humbucker like this guitar here has. So that was kind of the run from 1984 until 1990. And then in 1994, Jimmy Dkisto's services were employed again, but this time they had the production entirely in America, in the Corona factory in the USA. And they had a young apprentice by the name of Stephen Stern, who was, I think he'd been working, if I get this right, I think he'd been working for Gretsch, because I know he ended up later with Gretsch, but I think he actually was previously working with Gretsch. So they employed him, and he actually, when he joined Fender, he wanted to, I think Dan Smith had, or I can't remember the name of the guy, that Dan something or other, Page or John Page or somebody, who actually ran the custom shop. And when they employed Stephen Stern, they said, you know, we want you to work for us. And Stephen Stern said, great, I want to build some Stratocasters and some Telecasters, you know, some bolt-on neck guitars. And they said, no, we're not going to get you to do that. We're going to get you to build these Archtops. And so they employed Jimmy Dkisto to train up Stephen Stern to build this run of Dkisto models. And so when a lot of people actually don't really know what models were even released around in the 90s. So I'm going to explain exactly, because I've done a bit of research into this, and it can be a little bit confusing. So again, they had three models. They had the Ultra, which they had in Japan. They re-released that. It was made again, you know, full-size jazz archtop acoustic. This time it was available without a pickup and with a floating pickup. I think it was Kent Armstrong floating pickup. And this time it was for sale for a lot of money, a lot of dollar. And this was built entirely by Stephen Stern as a custom shop master built guitar. And these are beautiful. These got really beautiful flame necks. You can see these on the internet. Some people are saying that Jimmy Dkisto actually built these. I think you'd have to actually talk to Stephen Stern to find out exactly which ones of those Ultras he actually built, and if Jimmy Dkisto had any involvement in building those guitars. But obviously, you know, Jimmy Dkisto was around and was helping Stephen Stern on those initial Ultra guitars. Then they made two other models. The Elite, which had been previously made in Japan, which was a spruce top, one pickup. They actually made very few of those models, but they were advertised. They were always advertised as the Fender Elite model. So they had a spruce top. This time they had solid back and sides, flamey neck, flamey back and sides, beautiful spruce top. These were quite expensive guitars. These were a lot more expensive than the Fender Japanese Elite. But by all accounts, I've only seen two of these guitars ever made. So if anyone's got one, I'd like to see another one. But I think Stephen Stern actually only made two of these. And again, these were master built all by Stephen Stern. And then they had the cheaper model, because they didn't have a standard, which was a Japanese 84 model with the two pickups. They did away with that for the American run. Okay, this brings us to this particular guitar here, which is called a Fender Dkisto Deluxe. So let's just check out the sounds. Beautiful sound. It's quite a dead, acoustically it's not that great. You know, an old 175 from the 950s would probably be louder, more resonant. That might have something to do with polyurethane lacquer, which is featured on this guitar. Could be a number of things. Could be that this guitar's actually never been played because it literally looks brand new. It was made in this is the COA, and this was made in 1998 by Stephen Stern. So this is actually a master-built Deluxe because there were, as far as I'm aware, there were two versions of the Dkisto Deluxe. There was a master built by Stephen Stern where he signed it on the back. You can see like a little print, his name on the back of the headstock. And also he signs it on the inside. So he actually signs it and he dates it. And this has a one-piece laminate flame maple top and back. Okay, so that's not two-piece, that's a one-piece laminate top and back. But obviously a laminate's 5-ply or whatever, how many bits of wood they stick together. The team-built versions they were split, like book matched, okay? So that's one way of telling a team-built guitar from a master-built. And like I said, the team-builts were probably around $4,000. The master-built, this guitar here, was probably more. You're looking to pay for one of these, possibly, I don't know, maybe between £3,000 and £4,000 on the market, on the second-hand market, and possibly even more. But I would personally look out for a Stephen Stern master-built version, not the team-built one, and you can quite easily find the difference. But so it's got a really sort of striking tone. Like I said, this guitar needs to be played in a little bit more, but a really cool guitar. I really like it. It's probably going to be featured on this channel a lot now because it's kind of like, you know, jazz is a teacher, blues is a preacher. So, you know, if you want to learn your chords, your theory, it's great to get a jazz Archtops guitar guys and play a bit of jazz so you can actually learn what you're doing, you actually understand what's going on with the music thing. But this I really got a cool sound. I think it's going to open up. I really love this guitar, guys. It's pretty unique. They didn't make many of these, maybe 100 was made in total. Yeah, what more can I say? Really cool guitars. Fender, you know, they didn't make a lot of guitar Archtops, you know, so these are pretty unique, pretty special. They're not known as an Archtops builder, but they did get Jimmy Dkisto, they got Stephen Stern. These two dudes really knew what they were doing, and they produced some great guitars. So check these guitars out. Even if you're like into blues and rock, or even John Lee Hooker, you can still, you know, because like, you know, rock and roll was invented on an Archtop, you know, not a Les Paul. So, you know, these guitars are very versatile. You don't have to just be a jazzer to enjoy them. You know, they are, for me, they are the pinnacle of guitar, you know, design. The aesthetics is just absolutely wonderful. And really, these are, you know, this is the top of the top when it comes to in how the guitars are evolved. I guess you could call this particular model like an ES175 because of the maple. But do check out the Japanese. I think for me, you know, I would, if you wanted to get a guitar and you didn't want to spend too much money, you know, check out the Dkisto Japanese standards. You might be able to get a good deal on one of them. and the Elite, which is probably my favourite model from all of them. The Japanese Elite is a really sweet. It's got a slightly thinner neck. This is quite a chunky neck. Got a really playable neck. They're very resonant. The Schecter pickup's beautiful. I would definitely, you're not going to be disappointed. In fact, when I went to music college, that's how I learnt what I did learn to play jazz-wise. I learnt on a Fender Dkisto Elite from the 80s. So that's just my 2 cents. So guys, I'm going to be signing out here. This is Goose. Hope you've enjoyed this little video, and take care. See you soon.